Mike, you see Maria? Okay. All right, folks, so the only cards I have are for the open portion of the meeting. And obviously our student rep will go first. Anybody last minute wants to put up a card? Sure.
We went to Disney in June. Actually, I think we're going when this board meeting. But we're trying to decide the drive-in, how many days we're taking, auto train.
All right, folks, live mics. Don't talk about anybody.
Auto train. We did it. Yeah, we did it once. It was fun. That's a real thing. Yeah. I don't know if it really saves any money or if you don't like sleep, but it's like.
Unless you want everybody to hear. How you doing there? 37. What grade are you?
What?
You getting ready to go back to school? Good for you.
Did you know that?
You didn't miss much. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, they moved to non-consent.
I had them 2 days and 2 days, right? I had 2 days.
I'm always
4
sorry.
days, nothing 2 days. They went to principal and
I'm
asked
sorry,
if
that
they
was
could come on 4
kindergarten.
days,
I don't
and now
remember
have all
anything
6 of
from.
them.
First grade, I learned a lot. I did learn a lot.
To let them come all 4 days. That's how bad these
You don't have to put the whole thing, as long as I know what you're. Yeah, as long as I know what you're going to come up and it just gives me an idea where to stick it in the file.
Oh, it is. They're not loud, but they're not. I have ringings here anyway.
So loud.
This year is like I have like a full-time buzz in it, so.
All right, folks. Ready, Madam President? 41.
Maybe I should try that.
Okay. We're good, Jim? Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could we please stand for a pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, this is a public meeting of the Bayonne Board of Education. It is 6:42 p.m., the 27th day of April, 2021. We're convening in the Alexander O'Connor Auditorium. Presiding officer is Maria Villado, President of the Bayonne Board of Education. Those in attendance include Mr. John J. Neese, our Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Kenneth Kopaz, our Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, Ms. Jennifer Vecchiarelli, our Assistant Superintendent for Special Services, Dr. Gary Maida, Board Secretary, Mr. Daniel Castles, our School Business Administrator, Mr. Thomas Fagu Jr., our Assistant School Business Administrator, Dr. Dennis Degden, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and Mr. Philip Lamparello, our Board Counsel. The meeting is open to the public. I will take a roll call. Trustee Burke.
Present.
Trustee Casillas.
Here.
Trustee Egan.
Here.
Trustee Finnerty is virtual. Trustee Sclafane. Trustee Watson.
Here.
Trustee Wilbeck.
Here.
Vice President Munoz.
Here.
President Villado.
Here. Okay.
Yep.
For the record, adequate written advance notice of at least 48 hours giving the time, date, and location of this meeting with the agenda was provided as follows. Notice was promptly posted at City Hall at 630 Avenue C on the bulletin board reserved for such announcements of the Board of Education. The Board Secretary sent such notice to the Jersey Journal and Bayonne Community News. Notice was filed with the Municipal Clerk of the City of Bayonne, Ms. Medina.
Before I get started, just some sad news. We'll take a moment of silence. Miss Mary Meany, who was a principal and administrator in our district for many, many, many years, passed away. And Mr. James Polaro is a retired special service teacher. I'd like to just take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. I'd like to start with our approval of minutes and our acceptance of communications. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, and I would also like to extend my warmest wishes to everyone retiring.
And a second?
Second.
A motion and second on minutes and communications. On that motion and second, Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Cassius?
Yes.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty? Trustee Sclafane? Trustee Watson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilbeck?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz?
Yes.
President Villado. Okay, I'm going to go out of order. I'm going to ask everybody to turn to the last page of their agendas, non-consent agenda. And we'll start with Resolution D1. All our resolutions are up on our bulletin board, and I put these resolutions on the front. So even though we're out of order, they're correct on the boards. So Resolution D1, we'll read the resolution and then do the presentation. Mr. Castles? Sure. Why don't I turn the meeting over to Mr. Castles?
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Castles. I'm the business administrator here for the Bayonne School District. Tonight, I'll be presenting the 2021-2022 annual school budget. First off, I want to apologize for doing the presentation sitting down. We're still in this virtual, in-person world. Some people are here, some people aren't, and I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to hear what I'm saying. So hopefully next year we'll be back to our new normal and we'll be able to do things the normal way. Before I get started, I'd like to thank the team that really put this budget together. I'm giving the presentation, but it was a whole army of people that really put this information together. I'd like to first start with the Finance Committee and the Board of Education as a whole. They spent several hours with me dealing with my babbling about numbers and helping to compile this information. Also, the central office team, Mr. Neese, Mr. Kopez, Dr. Degnan, Ms. Veccarelli, Mr. Fagu, they all did a tremendous job of providing the input I needed to help compile this, the principals, vice principals, and then finally, my phenomenal business office staff. Couldn't have done any of it without you. Tom, Jack, Laura, Lori, Chrissy, thank you for all you did for the budget process and what you do day to day. It really means a lot. Thank you, guys. All right, so without further ado, we'll jump into it. The budget is made up of several different funds. The first fund, Fund 10, is what everyone really considers the budget. It's called the operating budget. It's what you see in the newspaper. It's what funds the day-to-day operations. That's teacher salaries, all the supplies, pencils, paper, maintenance, custodial, all the things that you think of as a school, that's part of the operating budget. And for 21-22, this presented budget is $154 million. Another fund is called the Special Revenue Fund. We've done a lot of talking about ESSER funding and CARES Act funding. Those are all grants, and it's part of this Special Revenue Fund. Those funds are given for a specific purpose. You have to use those funds in the allowable uses dictated by either the state or federal agency or the local agency that gives those funds. In this budget, we have $18 million. That 18 does not include ESSER funding. Since ESSER funding, the application hasn't been approved, so we couldn't put it into the budget, but those funds will be available. Some of the other funds are enterprise fund. Those run like mini businesses. So food service, community ed, they run independent. The money that they take in helps operate those funds. And then the last piece is the payroll agency, which helps pay the IRS, Social Security, all the payroll taxes and things of that nature. So operating budget revenues. Here are all the revenues from last year and this year. I apologize, it's pretty small, but I'll kind of walk through those numbers pretty quickly. The tax levy for the 21-22 school year is $70.4 million, or a 1% increase. That 1% increase represents a total of just under $700,000 increase to our school budget. Other parts of the local revenue streams are tuition and what's known as miscellaneous revenue. That's revenue from miscellaneous sources, for lack of a better term, or payments from the prior year. The other big piece of our budget is state aid and state figures. So we'll be receiving $80 million in state aid for the 21-22 school year. We also receive about $700,000 in what's known as extraordinary aid, and that's basically aid the state gives you for the extra costs for the services you provide to your special ed population. The final two pieces are from federal sources, Medicaid reimbursement. That's actually a reimbursement for some of the programs we provide for our Medicaid eligible students. And then the last piece is budgeted fund balance. And what that is the funds left over from the 2019-2020 school year. So that's not the current school year, that's last school year. Any funds left over that are above the 2% threshold can be used for certain things. In this case, it's used to, in this budget, in the 21-22 school year. So as we take a look at this graph, we really start to see that we've kind of shifted from being dependent on local sources or local tax levy to being more dependent on state aid as our state aid increases. The one thing I want to bring up that's super important is why we're getting more state aid, where we're going with that, and how that affects us. So as part of Senate Bill 2, they revised or slightly adapted the funding formula for schools. And since Bayonne has been historically underfunded, what they did is uncap state aid. They based the state aid on your true enrollment. So state aid is really based on two things: your adequacy budget, and what that is what the state says you need to run a school district and have a thorough and efficient education. That total amount, our adequacy budget, is $198 million. Based on state figures. The other piece is called the local fair share. And what that is what the state deems the local taxpayer should contribute to their school district. That's based on equalized valuation and district income. It does lag a couple years, but that number for the 21-22 school year is $97 million. That's $27 million under what we're asking the local taxpayer to provide, around $70 million. Now the caveat to that is there's a 2% cap and we really can never reach that local fair share. But the most important piece of that is that, and I've expressed this to the Finance Committee, I think it's important for both the board and the community to realize that we're going to have to continue to increase taxes at a certain level to show the state that we have, for lack of a better term, skin in the game. We are contributing at the local level, so we'll get those state aid, that additional state aid money. Our uncapped state aid is $101 million. So that's $20 million additional from what we're getting for the 21-22 school year. So we really want to capitalize on receiving all those funds. So that's just something projecting forward that we need to continue to discuss and continue to look at. All right, so this is a 10-year tax comparison for the school district. What we received in the 2012-2013 school year as compared to what we're looking to receive in the 21-22 school year. So you'll see the difference of $58 million and $70 million is the $12 million roughly. So over the last 10 years, we've increased the school budget and the tax levy by $12 million. In the same 10-year period, our state aid has increased $26 million. So if you could see kind of where, as long as we're putting the effort forward with the local tax levy, our state aid is going to continue to kind of jump up based on the new funding formula. So that was the point of those two. All right, so we're going to move into the operating expenses. So where is our money going? That was where is our money coming from. This is where is our money going. As you can see, a majority of our funding goes to salaries and benefits. So for 21-22, it's $94 million, $94.5 million in salaries and $26 million in benefits. That's an increase of almost $6 million. The other big piece is purchase property services. It's a big name, but all it really means is capital projects, replacing roofs, repairing older buildings, which we have a lot of in the district, It's basically maintenance and capital projects, and that's where we're looking to address a lot of the facility issues we have throughout the district. If you see here, this kind of really capitalizes on that 78% of our total dollars go to salary and benefits. And that's a really good number, I think. One of the things that I like to say is that people teach people, things don't teach people. The more people you have, the more teachers you have, that's a good thing for our overall goal of educating kids. Textbooks are great and they're useful, but you need a good person to have that textbook as a tool. Some of the things we're doing in this budget, we're adding child study teams, we're adding guidance counselors, SACs, student assistant counselors, OT, speech, behaviorist. There's a major focus on increasing our special ed staffing and also providing support services for those students as they return to in-person instruction. We want to have a support structure in place for those students so that they can thrive in the classroom and overcome some of the hurdles they had during virtual instruction. The other piece is, like I said before, capital projects, roof repair, facility upgrades, we have renovation projects. And then the last piece is we're doing a textbook replacement that has a digital component so we can kind of have that in-person old school textbook, but also have a virtual component that they can do in class or at home, however they see fit. One of the biggest things as our state aid increases and as our budget is growing is we have to be fiscally responsible. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is the cost per pupil. So basically what I did is I pulled all like districts in the county to see kind of where we fall. So our cost per pupil is $15,402. We're the second lowest in like districts. The only lowest is $14,827. But just as an idea, the state average is $17,028. So we're still significantly under the state average in cost per pupil. And that shows some of the efficiencies we do have from a financial statement purpose. I'm going to briefly move on to the special revenue fund. So some of the things that do come out of the special revenue fund is the entire preschool program is funded by a state grant. None of that comes out of the operating budget, salaries, the whole thing. So that's $12 million, and that will be the continuation of the preschool program. As that grant expands, we'll be able to expand that preschool grant, but we're kind of limited by the grant to do what we can do with preschool. The other thing is ESEA, or the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. That's $3 million. You might have heard of Title I, II, III. Those are those programs that provide services to the kids. And also IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is for special education, and that's $2.4 million. All right, I want to thank everybody for putting up with me for the last couple of minutes. I know sometimes this gets a little dry, but it's very important to discuss, and obviously if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Mr. Castles, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I want you to clarify. So if we do not take the nominal 1% tax increase, we are jeopardizing millions worth of possible aid next year.
So it's my opinion that if you don't at least attempt to keep up with the local fair share, there could be repercussions with state aid funding in future years.
Thank you.
So, resolution D1, whereas the Bayonne Board of Education.
Dr. Maida?
Yes.
There may be a typo in the resolution. Maybe. Castles?
Check with Mr. Castles, and I'll make a correction if there is a typo. Let's see it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Resolution D1, whereas the Bayonne Board of Education's tentative budget for the school year 21-22 includes sufficient funds to provide curriculum and instruction which will enable all students to achieve the Common Core state standards and the New Jersey Core Curriculum content standards in compliance with NJSA 18A and NJAC Title VI and 6A. Whereas the district is going to increase the tax levy by 1% for a total of $70,451,920. Therefore, be it resolved that the Bayonne Board of Education adopts the following proposed budget for the 21-22 school year. Total 21-22 school district tax levy is $70,451,920. Be it further resolved that the superintendent and the school business administrator are hereby directed to establish the budget for the school year 2021-22, submit the said budget to the interim executive county superintendent, provide the certificate and the report of school taxes, the A4F, for the 21-22 school year to the City of Bayonne clerk and the Hudson County Board of Taxation by May 2021. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Motion by trustee Egan, and do I have a second?
Yes.
I have a second by trustee Watson. So a motion and second on resolution D1. Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Cassius?
No.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty? That's a yes. Thank you. Trustee Sclafane? That's a yes. Trustee Watson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilbeck?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz?
Yes.
President Villado?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is Resolution D2. Whereas it's been determined that there is a need for an emergency response and crisis management coordinator in the Bayonne Public School District. Whereas the Superintendent of Schools, Mr. John J. Neese, has recommended the appointment of Walter Rogers to this position. Be it resolved that Walter Rogers is hereby appointed to the position of Emergency Response and Crisis Management Coordinator for the Bayonne Public School District on a 12-month basis, effective May 1, 2021, with a salary of $65,000 per annum plus a stipend of $52.79 as an armed security personnel, subject to board discretion, with no health benefits. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by trustee Burke. Do I have a second?
I second it.
So I have a motion and second on resolution D2. Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Cassius?
No.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty? That's a no. Trustee Sclafane? That's a yes. Trustee Watson?
Yes.
That is also a yes. Trustee Wilbeck?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz?
I'd just like to make a statement before I vote. I would like to say that although the applicant is commendable, I think that with the layer of administration that we have here, the fact that the city has the city of Bayonne has an OEM director as is that would supersede the board's OEM director in times of crisis and crisis management. We have a superintendent who has a background in law enforcement and homeland security. I think he's more than capable of handling this job. So because of that, I'm going to vote no.
Excuse me. That was a no. And President Villado?
This position is a $65,000 position, and coming back in September, we could use the $65,000 for so many other things. We have a superintendent who we picked because of his security background. We have ex-police officers in almost every single school already that are there. We have a head of security who takes care of all those police officers, and he is excellent. He is also an ex-police officer. So we have many police officers that are already ex-police officers that are already in our school system. We have a superintendent that has excellent background in homeland security. That was one of the reasons that we were so we admired him so much to come and be our superintendent. In the situation we are in, I do not believe we need this position. I believe it's a waste of money. Money that we're asking you today, we, the board, telling the public that we're going to ask you for 1% more on your taxes so we can keep our levy, we can keep our tax part. And they're offering a position of someone who's going to sit in an office. For what? What's the level of security is that going to give us when we already put in this agenda, we already hiring 5 more armed securities to be in our schools, 5 more. What are we doing? I'm voting no on this, and I'm disappointed that my board members here did not think of this and believe that this is needed. It's an unneeded position.
Okay, that's a no. Resolution D2 passes 5-4. I'd like to read into the record, we're adding to non-consent on personnel, Resolution C37. Whereas the Board of Education has opted to pay certain discretionary stipends not covered by collective bargaining agreement. Whereas the Board of Education wishes to establish those salaries for discretionary stipends for the 21-22 school year. Therefore, be it resolved that the discretionary stipends are hereby approved as the per attached list. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective as of July 1, 2021. This is Resolution C37 on the first bulletin board. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that move.
Motion by Trustee Cassius and a second
I'll second.
by President Villado. So on that motion and second, Trustee Burke?
Yes.
That's a yes. Trustee Cassius?
Yes.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty? That's a yes. Trustee Sclafane is going to abstain. Trustee Watson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilbeck?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz?
Yes.
President Villado?
Yes.
Okay, C37 passes. C43 is also being added to non-consent. Whereas the Board of Education finds it necessary to make administrative adjustments and reassignments to meet the current operating needs of the school district. Be it resolved that it is recommended by the Superintendent of Schools that the below-named personnel be reassigned to the position listed next to their name. Be it further resolved that this Board of Education approves the recommendations made by the Superintendent of Schools to reassign the personnel listed below. Stephanie Titch, Woodrow Wilson Community Schools school psychologist, is going to 12-month assistant supervisor of special services autistic program. All the salaries are $126,508, and all the effective dates are July 1, 2021. Next is Jason Acera, Bayonne High School teacher of the handicapped, is going to 12-month assistant supervisor of special services, the BD Elementary, and the alternate program at the high school. And finally, Noelle Lego is a Bayonne High School teacher of social studies. She is going to 12-month assistant supervisor of special services, MD and self-contained programs, elementary and high school. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
By Trustee Cassius and a second
I'll second.
by President Villado. So on that motion and second, Trustee Burke?
Yes.
That's a yes. Trustee Cassius?
Yes.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty? Okay, I will repeat the question, and I guess we'll direct it to the superintendent. Is the trustee is asking what the rationale is on the reassignments of the 3 staff members.
I think we're in for a vote now, right?
What?
We're up for a vote now, right?
I know, but I just point out that the trustee is asking me to ask a question for her. I turn it over to the chairperson on
On what?
And he should be commenting on it to the extent it's individuals on personnel and.
Yes,
Right.
you can't comment. This needed to be discussed in executive, please.
So trustee, when we were in executive session at the open workshop, that would have been the proper time to ask this question. I'm just repeating what Mr. Lamparello said. So unfortunately, I don't think we can answer the question. What's before you now is a simple yes or no on the vote. Then that's a no by trustee Finnerty. Trustee Sclafane is a yes. Trustee Watson.
Yes.
Trustee Wilbeck
No.
is a no. Vice President Munoz
Yes.
is a yes, and President Vlada
Yes.
is a yes, and that also passes. Okay, so non-consent is out of the way. I'll turn to the regular agenda. One sec. Okay, first up is our curriculum, our instruction and policies, resolutions A1, including all the way up to A13. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Motion by trustee Wilbeck. A second? Second by trustee Sclafane. So on that motion and second, trustee Burke
Yes.
is a yes. Trustee Cassius?
Yes.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty? I think we lost. Trustee Sclafane? Trustee Watson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilbeck?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz?
Yes.
President Vlada?
Yes.
Next up is our Finance, Building and Grounds, Resolutions B1 to B15. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Motion by trustee Egan and a second by trustee Watson. So we have a motion and second. On that motion and second, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is still out, trustee Sclafane, trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
Vice President Munoz,
Yes.
President Vlada.
Yes.
And then finally, our personnel, resolution C1, up and including C46. Please remember that C37 and C43 were voted on non-consent. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that.
Motion by trustee Cassius and a second by
Second.
President Vlada. So on that motion and second on personnel, trustee Burke,
Yes.
trustee Cassius,
Yes.
trustee Egan,
Yes.
trustee Finnerty is out, trustee Safane, trustee Watson,
Yes.
trustee Wilbeck,
Yes.
Vice President Munoz,
Yes.
President Vlada.
Yes.
President, that is all I have, but we do have some questions from the audience. I'll start with Melissa Gotsky Rodriguez, 178 Avenue F, has a question for the open portion of the meeting.
Good evening, Melissa Godesky Rodriguez, 178 Avenue F. I have a few questions. So the first one is, I'm so happy to see all the additions to our special education services. I almost want to cry because it's going to make a huge difference. And I think for years I've been coming up here and questioning when will services be added, when will services be added, because I don't think they're just for our special education students, but I really think they're going to be there to close the gap for many of our other students. So thank you so much. Just a question, is some of that funding going to go to the training for our staff and teachers on IEP processes and et cetera as well?
Hi, Mrs. Godesky. Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Thank you. Question on our hiring process. So regarding hiring for any district employee or outside employee for any given role, are all qualified candidates interviewed?
No,
Okay,
that would be impossible.
okay,
There's certain positions where there's 140 applicants that just would not be possible. So we have a screening committee, and those applicants would be interviewed.
perfect, thank you. And then one last question, the slideshow for the budget, can that be made accessible for the public?
Absolutely. So tomorrow I'll have it up on the district website, so anyone can see it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
No worries. Not as important as district budget. I get it. But good evening, trustees, superintendent, and assistant superintendent. So as I mentioned last time, we're getting our 2021 to 2022 student council election process set up. We decided we're going to stay the same as last year, and we're going to hold the process virtually, so students who are interested in running will be able to do that shortly. In addition, we're also happy to be able to help with the advertising for our prom this year. I know you all worked also very hard with the school in getting this done. So basically, as of right now, there's a senior survey that's been emailed to all of our senior students. This is very important because it briefly explains how the prom is set up. It also asks them if they would be interested in attending that and if they want it to be a semi-formal event or a formal event. It's very important for the seniors and the families to answer that survey so that we have a better understanding of what we're planning around. But other than that, if you have anything else you'd like me to communicate to the student body, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Is it okay for him to be here? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to follow up. On a couple of things. Last month, I had asked about whether there would be before care and after care, and had asked you, Superintendent, and you had said that there would be. I haven't seen any paperwork about that. Is that still happening, or is that not possible anymore?
We're still working on that aspect of it because of our hybrid day, but we're working on it, and we'll get something out to our community.
Okay.
I think you'll get something out next week to everybody, let you know.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said about next week.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear what you said about next week.
I'm sorry. We're going to get something out to everybody next week. We're still working on the logistics of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No, you can't speak because you didn't go on there. It's okay. Okay, I want to ask, I know that we've talked about the possibility of going back in June 5 days if there are not COVID cases. What happens if there are COVID cases? And I apologize if that was in the form last week. I was reading some of it, but I don't remember everything. If there's a positive case at my son's school, for example, will the whole school shut down? Will it be just his classroom? What are some of the procedures that may happen?
Okay, that's a great question. So everything's going to be fact specific. And what that'll do is, I'll give you an example. And you're correct. I did put out there that if we can get through the month of May, we can go 5 days a week in June. I can let you know that our JV baseball team, we have a positives on that as of yesterday, so that's out for 10 days. So it is a challenge, but I will say this. Everything will be fact sensitive, and that will determine whether it's the classroom, whether it's the grade level, whether it's perhaps the floor of the school in question, whether it is the cohort, if it's cohort A or cohort B that it would have to be shut down, or are there multiple positives within, like, say, a family? So you know what I mean? Like, everything's really fact sensitive, and that's why we're going to do a lot of contact tracing to actually screen out how we would close. I don't envision the entire district being closed at any given time, just on the sheer number of schools that we have, and we are operating at about 40% capacity. That's what the numbers have shown in our survey. It's about 40%. We will really know come May 3rd what the true number of students that will come back to the district. But right now, that's what we're planning for.
Fantastic. Could I just get a clarification? When you say 40% capacity, does that mean about 40% of parents said they were sending their children back?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. One more question, and it does not have to do with this school year. What is the plan for gifted and talented next year? I hear Oresco is no longer, my son will not be looking for gifted and talented at Oresco in the 5th grade, but now there is a possibility that he could be doing a gifted and talented program at Midtown in 2nd grade?
Yes, that's correct. There is the Strengthening Gifted and Talented Education Act signed by Governor Murphy, and we're going to provide Type 3 personalized enrichment in each school. So there'll be more information to follow, so opportunities to provide that would be in their school, no traveling.
Great, thank
if
you.
found eligible.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your help. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Next up is Miss Lynn Pulowski, 128 West 26th Street.
Hi, good evening. Lynn Pulowski, 128 West 26th Street. Thank you all for being here tonight. I want to say thank you so much for the detailed pandemic recovery return to school document. I think it was very helpful. Your follow-up document today was even better with the times the kids are going to school, the fact that they're getting snacks. I'm very happy, and I appreciate all the hard work everyone has done. I guess the only question I have, I had asked last board meeting, I hadn't heard back an answer, and I'm hoping maybe there's more information. Will students who are eligible for IEPs and 504s be invited to come back to school more than twice a week?
Hi, I apologize that I didn't get back to you. I don't know if I was here when you asked that question, so I do apologize for that. But at this point, we're working on the hybrid schedule, and and as far as what's going to happen in the coming months or the next school year, I can't give a definitive answer until we see how everything goes with the safety and well-being of all of our students and staff.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, are there plans being made for September or not yet? Am I jumping the gun too much?
No, that's actually a great question. You could ask me about graduation as well, and I would be able to tell you, I think the governor's going to make another announcement about public gatherings, but we're planning for a multitude of scenarios, but until, we get that, we do know that the governor has kind of issued, or he did issue an edict that basically says we are coming back to school next year. But if you ask me as a superintendent of this school district, I'm going to tell you, I don't know what that looks like yet, but if I'm thinking, I'll give you, here's a perfect way to think about this, ladies and gentlemen. So, there are 711 school districts in the state of New Jersey. That includes public schools, charter schools, Renaissance schools, schools for students with disabilities. 246 of those are all in person. 470 are open for hybrid instruction. 47 are all remote, which Monday we were one of those 47. We turned into one of those will be 471. And 48 are using a multitude of different scenarios. So I think we'd all love to see, come September, 711 school districts in schools 5 days a week, and with lunch, a full school day. And I'm optimistic that will happen, and I'm hoping for that for all of our children. But we are, with all of our teams and our teachers and all the educators and our Board of Education, that's what we're pushing for, and that's what we're planning for. But again, we know that we could be thrown a curveball at any time, but I'm really hoping we're getting past COVID-19 and we're getting to school all the time. So I really didn't answer your question, did I?
Well,
but I kind of,
yeah.
We want to be there. Like,
Right.
There's not one individual in this room that I don't think wants to be in school, or we want to be in school 5 days a week, and we want that. We want to be there. And with all of the precautions and everything that we've done, I believe we can do that as safe as possible. And I hope that this return is indicative of that, and we can combat these outbreaks.
And if things are going well with the plan we have now, could you see things gearing up a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If we can get through the month of May without having COVID-19 outbreaks, and I know some people are, you're biting your tongue or you're crossing your fingers, but if we can do that, let's come back 5 days a week in June 1st.
And somewhere in there lies the middle also, right?
Correct.
Okay.
There always is, right?
Yes.
Because, unfortunately, COVID-19 doesn't, it knows no boundaries, and unfortunately, our challenge will be when we have to close a school, and let's hope it's not sooner, it's later.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is, I'm sorry.
Last meeting, Ms. Pulowski brought up and asked a question that I asked in March of 2020, why we weren't, as a Board of Education, Zooming out to the public to give the public, especially in the pandemic, more of a say in the process in the meeting. And to my knowledge, you haven't got that answer yet, right, Ms. Pulowski? But, and I don't expect you to get it right now because it's putting them on the spot, but I would like to implore technology and the administration to please look at the feasibility of that, because I really think it's a great idea. I wish we were doing this all along, and it's something to increase the participation of the Bayonne community in the Board of Education meetings. So if we could look at that, I would really appreciate it.
So next up is Ms. Susan Barron's, 15 East 43rd Street. Mr. Neese, I believe you said you'll look into that for Vice President Munoz? Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Susan Barron's, 15 East 43rd Street. I had a couple of questions. So the first one, in regard to returning, I don't think realistically you can expect that every teacher is going to return if you're looking at other places that have gone back to school. So my curiosity is, do you have a head count for how many teachers will not be returning? And is there substitutes for those teachers?
Yes, we are all set to open May 3rd.
My other question was, teachers in other districts have been teaching simultaneously in class and home for months. It's going to be a challenge for the teachers because it's something new. Have we studied what has been done at the other schools in order to better support our teachers during the transition? Just for tips or, you know, because that is a difficult...
We sent out a best practice document to the staff today.
My last question is not one that could be answered probably today, but I know we're now getting extra millions of dollars, and one of the things that's happened during the pandemic is that we have very old school buildings, and, you know, it's been a big problem for us. Is ever there a place in the budget that's going to be planned for building new schools, especially as they're building new apartments and new people are coming in? Would that be something that's going to be written into the budget at any point?
To answer, yes, we're always looking to expand. Eventually, we're going to have to address some of the aging buildings, so any opportunity that arises, we will investigate.
What about Marist School? Did the city buy Marist School and was going to lease it to the school board?
Yeah. I don't think we really need to discuss that in order right now. Yeah, there's pending discussions that are of legal nature, so we can't discuss that in public at this time.
All right, thanks.
Next up is Mr. Jeff Barron, 15 East 43rd Street.
Hello. Thank you, everyone, for having these meetings and continuing to let us speak. I would like to discuss right now the teachers union, and I hope Mr. Woods be able to address my question when he speaks tonight. On behalf of myself, my wife, my daughter, and many other concerned Bayonne parents, I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation of the hard work and wonderful job that our teachers have done in this most difficult of circumstances over the past year. They've risen to the challenge in a spectacular fashion and ensured that our children are receiving the best education they can. It is no fault of the teachers that virtual education cannot match the quality of in-person learning. There are two reasons for the virtual learning: the safety of our children and the safety of our teachers, nurses, and other school staff. The CDC and the American Association of Pediatrics have made it clear that for children, COVID is no more dangerous than the flu. Children have accounted for less than 1/10% of the COVID fatalities. In fact, the increase in child abuse, suicides, and mental, emotional, and social difficulties make it clear that our children are in more danger from a virtual education than in-person learning. That being said, it was absolutely the right choice to have virtual learning to protect our hardworking teachers, nurses, and other school staff. The vaccine is now available to all the teachers, and safety measures have been put in place in our schools. With this in mind, the school board has made the right choice to reopen schools. However, considering what has happened in other districts, my question is this: is the union 100% on board with this reopening plan? And if not, what actions may they take against the plan, and what might trigger such actions?
Well, I think our next speaker is going to be Mr. Woods, so maybe our next person come up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My final card, Mr. Woods.
So I want to start off with talking about the presentation that we saw in the open workshop. The presentation was definitely well done by BioShine. We appreciate all of the information that they provided us because it was definitely much needed. Many of our members had questions about the units themselves and, information that gets out there. Again, I spoke to David outside, and we were talking about how many people I have to answer questions for, on a daily basis. So we were satisfied with the discussion, and then thank you, President Villado, for letting me ask the question because we just wanted to clarify. I took a step outside just to go get some air, and David and his colleague were there with Brian Marafiotti, and they called me over, and he asked, where in particular in the district would be one of those buildings that I spoke about that does not have windows or, other types of ventilation coming through. So I said, perfect, we have house 6 right here, the nurse's office and the secretary's office. We took a walk over there, he looked in there, he showed us the setting on the little table units for the smaller spaces, and encouraged us to reduce the level on there that gets produced in the air. So there's a button there that's mechanized, and they can press that and move that around. I asked the question, since it was the nurse's office and secretary and the dean's office, we're going to have students in there. And he said, as long as the doors are open, you will have airflow coming in. So for me, again, that was pretty clear for us because that was one of the discrepancies that we were trying to figure out, because on that manual, it says airflow. So we were trying to figure out what does that mean as airflow. So he assured me that that is the airflow, and that will take care of the the virus in the air. We exchanged cards, we talked a little bit more, and went through some of the other factors that have to be dealt with in the district. So again, I appreciate that he came in, he gave a really great presentation with his partner, and then just by chance we got a quick look at one of the places to reassure all of our members. So our members, if they're home, listening, watching, that's there. I'll get that information out to them also. So my next piece here is, with our target date now officially Monday, May 3rd, we're hoping that the district will be firing on all cylinders. As our squad of teachers, secretaries, nurses, guidance counselors, speech therapists, psychologists, and other staff members return to our buildings to meet with many of our students, we enter into Teacher Appreciation Week. And I just want to make sure to thank every single one of our educators for meeting the challenges that we have all faced over this last year. It takes a lot to run a district. A lot of the stuff came very quickly to us, and we did a great job putting all of that together. Now, it is true that in-person education can never be replaced by virtual education. However, under the circumstances in which we are living, virtual education was the best option. When you look back to the ways in 1918, 1919, and 1920 in which they educated students during the flu epidemic, kids in New York City were sitting outside with coats and blankets in the middle of winter. That could never and should never happen. But obviously, we're talking about 100 years ago where things were much different. So the option that we chose here, going all virtual to protect as many students and as many staff members as possible, was the best option moving forward. We walked the buildings. Last week, we did it in 2 days on Thursday and Friday. All 40 plus of my association representatives, my executive board members, divvied up schools. We walked the buildings with some of the principals who worked with us. We walked the buildings with our custodial staff, and any issues that we had, we wrote up our reports. That report went out on Sunday morning, and they have been getting addressed going over the next few days. Obviously, there are some things that still need to be cleared up, but again, we're moving in that direction. hopefully, moving forward, if any of those things come up that need to be rectified, we'll have that open line of communication where we can get those things done and, hopefully not meet any resistance along the way. But again, the virtual option was the best option to keep people safe and healthy, and we want to make sure that we thank all of our educators, who took that task on, and we appreciate the ability to continue to do those things. So, thank you.
Motion by President Solano, is there a second? Second by Vice President Lopez. On that motion and second to adjourn the public meeting, Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Desai?
Yes.
Trustee Egan?
Yes.
Trustee Finley is out. Trustee Tremaine? Trustee Watson?
Yes.
Trustee Wilbur?
Yes.
Vice President Munoz? Yes. President Pilato? It is 7:35. Jimmy, sorry about the mic.